Assalamualaikum. We are from Group 5. My name is Kamaliyah. For our group project, our group has choose topic distributed ledger, digital identity in banking system. Okay. As you can see from the slide, this is the outline of our slide. Firstly, we will talk about introduction and then protocol layer, moving on to the network layer, and lastly about the application layer. Okay, for my part, I'm going to do the introduction. Okay, what is digital identity? Digital identity is the digital representation of the information known about a specific individual, group, or organization. How can our data through online is being collected? This is because once we engage into any online transaction or activity, it will collect all our data in a database. For example, we upload our photo in Instagram, sign in into any website, and also shopping online or making payment through online. Okay. However, there is many issues regarding digital identity. This is because they are saying that digital identity easily be stolen through online, because this is all due to the centralized system used in banking transactions specifically. Because centralized system, they have this kind of large database that people hackers easily to hack and store the data from us and use it for bad purpose without the user information. Okay. Therefore, we have come across a solution where we can use blockchain or distributed ledger technology in banking system to secure the personal data or identity. Besides that, we have answered 8 questions. The next slide, 8 questions, in order to know whether our case is suitable or not to use blockchain or otherwise. Okay, the next slide is about the question. The first question is about whether the blockchain technology can replace centralized system. The answer is yes. There's no need for financial intermediary or central authority to provide information or services to user anymore. With blockchain, everyone have access to the same information and to their own personal information. The data or information is being scattered everywhere and is keeping at multiple places, not by the bank management anymore. Uh, in addition, banking sector cannot rely anymore on centralized system, although this system enable bank to control the user's data, uh, because the system is really exposed to cyber attacks such as fraud and forgery, which bring total disruption to the whole system and will affect the user the most. Okay, the second question is about do current banking system needs immutability features? The answer is yes. Banking sector need immutability or irreversibility features in order to keep track on the historical record of transactions that have been done. This is important in order to detect crime, which may be done using banking services such as um, bribes and also money laundering. In blockchain technology, no parties can alter the previous transaction or records. Plus, the system enables us to detect any errors as the previous data will be permanently stored without having any changes made to the data. Okay, moving on to the third question. The question is about whether the use of blockchain technology can target an ecosystem or rather just a few parties. The answer is yes. The use of blockchain technology will involve all the ecosystem, not only a few parties. The parties that involve are the user that involved in financial or banking activities such as customers, bankers, investors, communities, and regulators. Those parties need a system that can give the justice and not using their data for any bad purposes without their information. So that's why blockchain come to smooth the transaction. Okay, next slide for question 4. The The question is about whether there is a mistrust existing between entities that involved in transaction. The answer is yes. There is some level of mistrust between entities in banking transaction. This because you know that in banking transaction there are many procedure and agreement being done. So blockchain can solve this as it is as um, blockchain use a very secure way to keep the data of the people using private key and public key. It's a system that that recognize the emphasis on the ownership of the people. So no one another entity cannot easily assess the identity of another people because they cannot be recognized using private key and public key. Okay, moving on to the fifth question. The question is about whether the transactions interact with each other if we are using blockchain. The answer is yes. The existence of blockchain will help the interaction between consumers and financial institutions to become more faster. Because we know that banking industry every day they will generate a very large amount of transaction per day. So if you're still using current centralized system in banking industry, we can see that the transaction takes a very long time for people to interact with one another. For example, in the slide, for example, like if you want to transfer money between different bank, you cannot done it between just one day. You can minimum 3 days for you to transfer the money to another account between different bank. So with blockchain, it allows faster interaction between customer and banks. Even though there are many transactions that been done in a day. Okay, the last question is about whether blockchain can contribute value to business process. The answer is yes, because the current business model isn't really efficient, especially when it is involved money payment structure. Cross-border transactions in current banking system are time-consuming and expensive. So blockchain come into the picture to give value to business process through some changes where blockchain will eliminate the use of intermediary. The use of intermediary is the one that makes every process late, become slow. So there will be no intermediaries in decentralized system in blockchain, and also blockchain will enable us to use management information system for the fast track business operation in financial institution. Okay, that's all the question. We have answered all the question. So after answering all the question, we can now design how does blockchain can be applied in our use case in banking transaction in order to secure the personal data. Okay, I will pass the presentation to my friend.
Assalamu alaikum, I'm Anfal. I will proceed with protocol layer part. To answer the first point, which blockchain are we going to use? In this case, we will use private blockchain. Yes, a public blockchain has advantage of higher level of decentralized and immutability. However, private protocol is much faster, stricter, and safer than public protocol. A brief lecture as hyperledger fabric better full suitability for the for application which needs speed and scalability, as well as controls in situation where accidentally transaction error have occurred. So private blockchain also has the potential of introducing a certain level of automation where regards to the execution of contracts. Smart contracts, for instance, make it possible for certain things to happen when key have been entered by respective parties in a particular transaction. For example, if a goods have been shipped, it will be necessary to carry out financial transaction after the fulfillment of such conditions is payment of the invoice. Next slide, please. In terms of consensus machine, are we going to use? We will use proof of work, which uses computing capacity of members to validate transactions. This form of mining is very resource intensive due to the laborious computing caused by complex calculations. However, this effort is a part of the security consents protocols. This protocol is designed and protects the network from being manipulated. And the next point, which is expectation regarding the performance in terms of speed and transaction programmability. Should we need to use smart contract or payment functionality of the blockchain? Blockchain uses a public blockchain such as Rootstock as a system which provides a smart contract with a slightly higher speeds for transaction can meet the programmability and functionality required for this application, but does not fulfill the flexibility of it through the use of private blockchains. Given the advantages and availability of resources and stakeholders involved, a better approach is a provided blockchain that allows for speed, scalability, and more important consistency in error transactions, error corrections. I mean. Move on the last point, which is the developer resource variable. There should be a blend of human resources available, such as developers, strategies, marketing, and PR. To seek the opportunity, the resources on private blockchain are limited if a startup project or visit. So they are open of fewer developers, so the cost is higher in comparison to the public blockchains, which has stable and sustainable open source developer communities. That's all from me. We pass to Mr. Hani.
Okay, thank you, Anfal, for the explanation. Okay, moving on to the next part, which is the network layer. So the first things about the network layer is how big is gonna be the network. So the network is gonna be really big as it will covers the global network. This is to allow the large access in order to support global payment and also transactions. So the scales is universal and unlimited, whereby the distributed ledger will help in transforming payment at international scales faster, while keeping the personal data information in a secure and safe way. So this kind of thing will also help to reduce the risk of failure. And bank also should offer a quick and efficient onboarding process that enables bank to essentially plug and play into the network for both existing and for the future corridors. So moving on to the next point under the network layer, which is who gonna run the nodes. So here we see that in relation with the private blockchain. So we see that the authorized client or customer should run it or should read and write to access the blockchain. So this is because within the banking sector, it is also a kind of sensitive entity where it holds the financial data, also personal informations, and also it will be secure if and only if we have the authorized customer client, but still within in the decentralized system.